because this morning I want to talk about dreams and what interrupts dreams. So this morning, the song that you heard, Xanadu, you might go, I've heard that song before, that word before, and you're wondering, where have you heard it before? Well, there was a poem written a couple of hundred years ago, and it's relatively famous as English language poems go. And the poem is, let's see if I can make this go forward. There we go. Called Kubla Khan. So this guy wrote this poem, and what's interesting about the poem was it started in a dream. He was dreaming, and literally the entire poem came to him in his dream. And when he woke up, he grabbed a piece of paper and started writing it down, and he got 10 lines into the poem. And if you think you've heard of this, this is the first couple of lines of the poem. In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree. So the rest of the poem, he's writing it down very quickly. He gets 10 lines into writing it down, and he gets interrupted. And then he forgets the rest of it, and he tries to write it down based on the best of his recollection, but he doesn't. He writes whatever he can come up with. And in case you're wondering, Xanadu was the English way of pronouncing Chengdu, which was the place in China where Kubla Khan had this palace. So that's where we get the word Xanadu. Very appropriate, I think, because in a way, it is a dream poem. It was started in his dream. He wrote it down. He got interrupted, and he did his best to continue with that poem. So my question this morning is, do we have passions? Do we have something that we're passionate about, a dream that maybe we start on, and then we get interrupted? So what do you do? And that's what I'm going to talk about this morning. And I want to start with, if you got the email that we sent out on Friday, I suggested that you take a look at a list of statements that we can sometimes make when we're talking about what's possible for us. And I called them I can't statements, where you would say, I can't do something because. And it's interesting, if you think about the word I can't, the statement I can't, in a way, it is an affirmation. When you say I can't do something, you're essentially affirming that, right? You're saying, I can't do that. You may not think it's an affirmation, but you are essentially programming yourself to believe that's what's happening. And when you say, I can't because, now that becomes a belief. I can't because, now you're telling me the reasons why. You're saying, oh, well, you know what? I can't because of this reason. And then you're going to give me the reason. And if you looked at that printout that I have, and we have some outside here that you might identify with, I had 100 reasons. I didn't think that there would be that many, but when you start looking through it and you're like, these are all the things that we can say. And so, for example, you might say, I can't because I'm too old. I can't because I don't have the education. I can't because I don't have someone to help me with this. I can't because I don't know the way to do it. We can come up with all of those reasons. So we're like that guy who had the dream, the perfectly realized vision of what we were passionate about that we wanted. And we wake up, we start writing it down, and then something comes along and interrupts us. And for a lot of us, we can have a dream and we get interrupted by all the other things in the world. And I want to mention one this morning that can interrupt a lot of us, and it is this. Swan, would you advance that next slide? Thank you. You might be familiar with the idea of Netflix being something that can consume your time, right? You could get into Netflix, and before you know it, how many hours have gone by? Lots of time. So that is something that gets in the way. Like, I don't know that anyone would say, I can't because I've got an appointment with Netflix, but essentially that's kind of what happens. And what's interesting about Netflix, if you look at, you guys all know the screen on Netflix, it's got all those little categories. And one of the categories is, it says, we think you'll love these. That's a category. We think you'll love. I like how we know it's an algorithm, but Netflix is like, we think you'll love these. Like there's actual human beings there that go, I know Dr. Tiffany, and I know Dr. Tiffany is going to love these. So it's fascinating because essentially the idea behind we think you'll love these is based on what you've done before, here's more of the same. based on whatever you've watched on Netflix before, here's exactly more of the same. So it's going to say, I don't want you to try anything new. I want you to be really super happy with what you've always watched before and only have that. You can tell from the tone of my voice, I'm not saying that's such a good thing. So the truth, though, is that if you think about the choices that you have in life and to think about what's possible for you. Swan, will you advance that next slide? Thank you. You can choose anything. So I'm not denigrating Netflix because in fact, Netflix represents something for me that's like one of my biggest ambitions, the biggest thing that I can possibly imagine for me, which is that I would have a show that I created on Netflix. I've now said that publicly for the first time ever. And that's a little scary. This is what happens sometimes when we talk about something that we're passionate about. We can hold it in. It's safe. That would have been way safer for me to hold that in, right? Never have to say it. But now I've said it, and so now I know there are people that are going to say, well, how's that Netflix show going? How are you doing with that? How is that coming along? And what's fascinating is the more that you hang on to something, you can think it's not possible. So you need to create. We know in Science of Mind, we have something called the idea of a mental equivalent. You create an image, a picture of what you want. So what did I do? I created a picture of my show. So if you look up there, I hope it didn't seem unusual to you that under We Think You'll Love These, there's a show called Come Back New. That is the name of the show that I imagine creating on Netflix. And this is, Swan, would you advance a slide? This is the artwork for Come Back New. The idea of this show is that it would be a documentary where we would take people to an amazing destination, teach them Science of Mind principles, and show them that they can create a new life so that when they come back home, they're a new person. So come back new. So that is the idea of the show that I have, Come Back New. And in order for me to keep that passion in my mind, I created this image so that I could continually go, yes, that's possible. So the title of my talk this morning is Passion-Fueled Life. What I just demonstrated was I created a picture of something that was my passion, and we need to do that. We need to keep that passion in our life because that's what drives us. That's what sustains us through all of those moments of interruption or those moments of doubt where we don't think something's possible. So that's a passion-fueled life where you live with that, you know the outcome, the thing you want, the dream you want. Kind of the opposite of that is if you're living, Swan, if you hit that, you're living a to-do list life. Now, I don't want to say like making to-do lists is a bad thing because I do it all the time. I have lists of all the things that I have to do. But if you are living a to-do list life, essentially what you're doing is you're saying, here is where I am today. Here's all the things I have to do. And for many of us, we have a very full life, which we're blessed to have. But what it means is you've got a lot of things to do. So you can get caught in that relative part of your life. But over here, this is Xanadu. This is your dream. This is the thing you want, the thing you're passionate about. So when you're living a to-do list life, you're over here, but you got to keep your eye on that. Now, I want to go, and Swan, if you go to the next slide, the opening lyrics of that song that Mindy just sang for us, Xanadu, a place where nobody dared to go. Literally the first line of the song. That's Xanadu. That's the place where your passion is. And how many of us stay over there? We stay over where our to-do list life is. And we don't dare go over there because if I told you that my dream was to have a show on Netflix, that would sound crazy. And I'd open myself up to judgment, which I'm okay with. Thank you, ministerial. But it's interesting, if you think about what your dream is, and Swan, if you go to the next slide, this is a word cloud of the number of times each word appears in that song. not uncommon in a song that the title of the song gets repeated a lot, but I think it's instructive for us because this is how whatever you're passionate about should appear in your life. It should be the biggest word that you think of. It should be the thing that lights you up. This is your Xanadu. This is what you're passionate about. This is what you dream about. So again, if you go to that next slide, a passion-fueled life, it can start, if you look at that little image there on the far left, it can start as one little spark. And then it becomes this huge rainbow. In the song, there's a lyric about the spark, that rainbow of shooting star. That's when you have a passion-fueled life. Your gas gauge, your accelerator is all the way over because you've got your foot on the pedal for what lights you up. Now, a lot of us, this is what our dream can look like. This is the journey to get to the dream, right? So you're at the start, and you're going to take this path. It's going to wind, and you're going to get to where you want to go. So you start on that dream, and then what happens? You stop somewhere. You get stopped because you go, I can't because. You know, the author of that poem woke up, and he started writing it down, and then someone interrupted him, and now he can't finish it. So maybe you push through this. You push through that one, but then something else along the way stops, and you go, well, I can't because you get to a step, and you go, oh, now I realize I need this, and I can't do it because. So maybe you keep going, and you get to another one. And suddenly, this journey that was full of possibility at the very beginning now is filled with I can't becauses. And what happens is that thing that is a check mark at the beginning, now it becomes a question mark. Because now maybe you won't get there. Maybe because of all the times that you said I can't because, now you're not going to get there. So this word because is a powerful word. Because anytime you say because, and it's funny, if you listen to the video I recorded on Friday, I even used it without even thinking about it. I was saying something and I said because, and then I'm like, oh my God, I can't. It's so pervasive, this idea that we make excuses. And we really want to own them, right? We really want to say, I've got the receipts for this. If you and I were having a conversation, I could tell you all of the reasons why I can't do something. And we're so proud of it, like, oh, you know what, check out these receipts. You want to talk about someone who really can't do something? Check me out. That's how we can feel sometimes, is that we're so proud of the reasons that we can't do something. And the I can'ts, there can be all sorts of different I can'ts. One is that personal experience. Something has happened to you where you go, oh, you know what, that thing happened to me before, so now I can't do this. Another one, and we're very familiar with this in Science of Mind, the idea of race consciousness, which is that there's a consciousness that can be in any sort of group, whether it's a country, a region, a state. This room, we can have a positive race consciousness, but a lot of times the idea is that it's something that stops you because you go, oh, our group doesn't do this. We can't do this. And finally, you might have misinterpretations or false thinking, things that you think are true, they're not, things that you've heard that are not, and you misinterpret them. So I just want to say this about the idea of this. Richard Bach said, argue for your limitations, and sure enough, they are yours. So if you want to go around and go, these are my receipts, check this out, here's all the reasons I can't do this, the universe is like, okay, fine, I'll give you more of that. But when you know you're living in a speed limit infinity universe, why would you argue for your limitations? Why would you say, I can't because? Because here's the thing, you can change I can't because by removing one letter. You can change I can't because to I can because. You can change it in a very simple way. Now, 30 seconds, little plug. In 2 weeks, I'm doing a workshop where we are going to change I can't because to I can because. So if this interests you and want to learn this process, it's going to be on Zoom, and we're going to basically take something that you think is true about you, and we're going to change it from I can't to I can. So you will come out of there knowing how to change that statement that you have, that limiting belief that you have, into something that is positive and affirms you. It's online. If you go to our website, on the calendar page, you'll see the link for it. I'm taking 30 people. It's on Zoom, Saturday morning, 2 hours. If it speaks to you, I'd love to see you. So this morning, I want to share 3 ways to live with passion. The first is to find your Xanadu, to know what it is that lights you up. And the biggest piece of advice that I can give you on this is forget what is possible. If I thought of a Netflix show, I would be stopped after half of a second, because I could pull out the receipts of all the reasons why I have no idea how to get to a point where there's a show on Netflix. And we all have that in our lives, something that we want. We can give you the reasons, but forget what's possible. Instead, think about what you would love. Ask that. Would you love to have a show on Netflix? Would you love to have that thing that you're passionate about? All of us in this room would say yes. Good, go with that. That is the first step, is finding what your Xanadu is. And the reason this is, we know this from Ernest Holmes. He tells us the word which carries power is the one that has conviction back of it. So the word, the thing that is possible, that thing that you want, if you have conviction behind it, if you believe, if you have passion behind that, that's what's going to carry it. He also tells us that, and this was, I think, alluded to this morning when Reverend Pam was saying this, we don't have to create passion, we allow it. He says we do not put the power into the word, but we do let the power of the law flow through it. So if you think that you have to create this passion, if you want to manufacture it, no, it's going to flow through you if you allow it to. So the second way to bring more passion in your life is gather new proof. I love that image of going out and think about gathering strawberries, because we all have had baskets of strawberries where you get them from Ralph's and 48 hours later they're moldy, right? Gather new ones. If you're going out there and you want to find proof that something is possible, gather new proof. Instead of going on this journey where you say, I can't because, what if you looked around and said, everything is unfolding perfectly no matter what? I will give you, and I shared this with John this morning, I will give you the most amazing synchronistic thing that happened to me this morning. I was driving here listening to the 70s channel on Sirius XM. And Casey Kasem, do you remember the American Top 40, how he would do the countdown? So he's about to play a song, and the song he's going to play, he tells a little story. Do you remember how he would tell you the story of this is the story. He said, this next band, and it was Deep Purple, he said, they were in 1972 going to this amazing recording place in the Swiss Alps on Lake Como or something. And they were going to record their new album in this location. And they had gotten all these amazing engineers and sound people. They set everything up. They were ready to record the album. And 2 days before they were going to record the album, the entire hotel burned to the ground. That would seem like a pretty big I can't because, right? You would think, oh my God, this is a sign. We're not meant to record this album. Well, do you know what Deep Purple did? Was they made plans to figure out where can we now record it, but now they had some time. So what did they do? They went and wrote a new song based on what just happened. And that song was the one that Casey Kasem was about to play, which is the song Smoke on the Water. Smoke on the water, fire in the sky. They were writing about that. So think about that. They took that. Everything's unfolding perfectly no matter what. Is there no better demonstration of that? I guess the hotel burning down, turned out really good for us, because now we get the opportunity to write a song that will be the biggest song on that album. And I heard that this morning as I was driving here. Again, if you're looking for things to prove, if you're looking for proof, what you're going to see is, oh, I can because. Instead of seeing all the evidence of I can't because, when you train your mind to look for signs that I can because, then that's what you're going to see. And it's so important because as Holmes says, actually, I'm going to go back. He says the law says that we can only have what we take. So you have to take this. You have to be out gathering those strawberries. You have to gather the strawberries that are the fresh ones. Gather that proof. So I want to ask you now the third one, which is, what's the biggest thing that you can think of. I love this image of a giraffe whose head is above the clouds. Here's a giraffe who's already pretty tall, and he's above the clouds. So this is where Holmes told us the law says that we can only have what we can take. So if you can take anything, why not take the biggest thing possible? Why not go for that instead of the smaller thing? Because as he says, we can expand the infinite, but we cannot contract the infinite. You expand the finite, but you can't contract the infinite. So why not go for the infinite? Because that is non-contractable. Not a word. So the question for you, in whatever you imagine, whatever passion you have, what's the biggest venue you can imagine? Yesterday, as I said earlier, we saw someone who saw his passion come to life. This is Dr. James standing on the stage yesterday at the Gary Marshall Theater before the presentation of his musical. Now, does Dr. James, is that the end journey for this? No. Where is the biggest venue that Dr. James will be thrilled to see this play on? Broadway. There, it took an hour into the service before we actually said Broadway. But no, that is where he imagines it. He doesn't go, God, you know, I'd really love if I could put that play on at the high school stage at Burbank High School. No. If you're an Olympian and if we're watching the Olympics, no Olympian or would-be Olympian sits at home and goes, gosh, you know, I'd really love to be able to execute the perfect dive at the country club hotel pool. Craig, what is the dream that everyone has? The Olympics, right? That is the biggest venue possible. If you're a baseball player, where do you want to hit your home run? In the 7th game of the World Series. A football player wants to win the Super Bowl. That is, everyone dreams of the biggest venue possible. Why not you? Why not imagine something bigger for yourself? And while you're at it, see yourself at the podium. See yourself with that medal around your neck. Because that's the energy that's going to drive you towards that. If your dream is to have a show on Netflix, why not create the image and put it on there so that you can see it? So I want to close with going back to Xanadu. Xanadu, the movie, not great. The songs were way better than the movie. But the movie had a very simple and I think for us relevant message. The movie was a story about a character who had a dream. He wanted to open a nightclub, and because it was the disco era of the 70s, it wanted to be a roller skating nightclub because that would have made sense in 1980. And Olivia Newton-John, her character was the muse for him. She was the person outside of him who said, this is possible, this can happen for you. And you know, we don't think of that power as being outside of us in science of mind. We know it is who I am. But as a demonstration of what's possible, that belief in yourself is there. The song that she sang, this was, for a movie that wasn't great, this was on the Billboard chart for 4 weeks as the #1 song. So when you think about that, there's a reason it appealed to people. And Swan, I'm not going to play the video, but I just want to go to that next slide, which is the lyrics. You have to believe we are magic, nothing can stand in our way. And she's saying, when we think of magic, the way that we look at it is not magic like the Magic Castle magic, but that power, that infinite, expansive spirit that allows us to be anything because that is who we are. Swan, would you go to that last slide? Yes, thank you. Song closes with, building your dream has to start now. There's no other road to take. You won't make a mistake. She says in the song, but really we think of it as you will be guiding you. Building your dream, it has to start now. Whatever your passion is, go find it. Go announce to people whatever it is, and then start to take steps, because I can promise you, since the time that I've been talking about what my passion is, the ideas for what that show will be have come to me. I've been gathering evidence, and I never would have done that if I stayed in that place of like, oh, that's not possible. That's never going to happen. A Netflix show? That's crazy. But because I allowed myself to be carried with that passion, that's what I believe. So I encourage you to ask for yourself, what dream What passion do you have? Start building it now, because do you know what? The Spirit within you will be guiding you every step of the way once you start to take that and move forward. Namaste.